In this video, I will be rating your favorite Creatures of Sonaria creature. I asked in the Discord and in this post what creatures you liked, the criteria being either by design or for playability. And here are the results. There weren't too many of them, so hopefully we can get through all of them in this video. Alright, so let's start off with this comment right here. Okay, so here we are spawned in as the Norox, and this is what it looks like as an adult. I do see what you mean when you say the skullcrawler-like design. It does only have the two arms with no hind limbs whatsoever, which I think is a pretty cool design. Norox, I'd say, is one of the more uniquely designed creatures, especially since its eye is actually right here. It doesn't have eyes where you'd expect it to. And yeah, let's check out some of the animations. So this is the walk animation. There's a lot of weight behind each of these steps, as you can tell. And here is the run animation. Norox is pretty slow, but I will say it's not like painstakingly slow like maybe like Korathos, so you could still get around decently okay. Oh, whoa, hold on. No, that's bad, do not attack. Why did this guy just come up and attack me? I do a lot of damage. Holy, wow, we just killed that guy in like 3 hits. We do, yeah, an insane amount of damage. But overall, yeah, I'd say Norox's design is pretty solid. Definitely one of the more iconic creatures in the game, and I'd probably rate it around a 7.5 out of 10. Alright, for the next comment, this guy says the Luxus and the Damora. Okay, so let's check out the Damora first, because I have it on hand. And I have to say, I actually never seen a Damora, at least in the default color in game. I really like the color scheme, like the blue with the gold. Yeah, I see why you like the Damora. The animation for the walk is pretty interesting. It kind of like shifts its legs like side to side. And now let's check out the run. Okay, yeah, the run does look pretty nice. It's really smooth. And there's like this sort of blue mist that comes along with its run, I think. Not when it's walking though. So this is going to be the aggro pose, which it flies into the air and sort of like jabs the stinger at you. And the cower, it kind of just does this, which is pretty cool too. This is the flying animation. And I can glide too. Just like this. Yeah, for sure, I agree. I think the Damora is one of the cooler creatures in game. I'm gonna rate this guy like a 9 out of 10. Yeah, really like the design. Gameplay is nice, like the movability. Yeah, the stats are really good, especially the damage. Yeah, 9 out of 10, easy. And the other creature you said was the Luxus, which looks like this. Very interesting pose. It stands pretty tall on its hind legs, and it walks sort of like a human, like the way the arms are moving. Let's take a closer look at the head. I can't really tell what's going on here. I can't really see the eyes. It looks like it's got these long eyelashes. The color scheme on this guy is pretty solid. It has sort of a star or like space sort of color scheme. It has all these stars on its coat, I guess is what you'd call it. And let's see the running animation. Okay, yeah, I immediately see what you mean when you say it has like this goofy personality. I really like these claws though. Look how long its claws are over here. If you can tilt the camera angle down. It reminds me a lot of the Dinosaurs, at least in the stance and the claws. So this is going to be the aggro animation. It kind of just like points forward. Let's see that again. Yep, points at you. And then, yeah, does a nice roar. So yeah, the animations for this guy are pretty unique. See the cower? Cower also kind of points, or I guess it's like putting its arms up to like guard itself, sort of. Let's see the rest pose. Okay, lies down, and here's the sit pose. It kind of just literally sits there. So yeah, Luxus, pretty interesting. I'll rate this guy I'd say like maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10 in terms of design. But yeah, I'm assuming you're choosing by design. 7 out of 10, I'll say. Final answer, 7 out of 10. Alright, next comment says, I love the old Annie design. It looked alien and also intelligent at the same time. Okay, so this is what the current Annie looks like, and I actually think this looks better than the old design. I like how refined the face is, and the color scheme makes it look a lot more natural than what it was before. Okay, so here is what the old Annie looks like. It looks a lot scarier than the current version. I see what you're saying with the alien sort of look. If you look at the eyes are pitch black, and the claws make it look sort of more intimidating. Yeah, I think I prefer the new Annie over the old Annie. I'd rate the new one maybe like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. But the old one, maybe like a 4 to 5. Comment down below which version of Annie you think looks better. I think the new one does, but this guy thinks the old Annie looks better, which is fair, you know, it's a valid opinion. Okay, next up we have this comment right here saying Kendall Aquatic T-Rex, and here is what Kendall looks like. I was expecting this guy to be somewhere on the list. Out of all the different Kendall designs, I think this third one might be my favorite. The first one is pretty iconic because it was the original Kendall design, but it looks a lot more like just a normal dinosaur. Second one looked pretty cool, but it was also just like a gigantic crocodile. I think the third is the best of both worlds. It still looks mostly like a dinosaur, I'd have to say, but it does run on all fours. Color scheme is pretty decent. They have these stripes or splotches going around. You got green on the neck, brown on the shoulders. Very natural looking creature. It's not too flashy like some of the other designs. Now let's check out some of the animations. So this is the walk animation and the run animation. Now let's check out the aggro. So this is the aggro animation. Okay. Wow, I don't remember the aggro animation being this well made for Kendall at least. Here is the cower animation. Just looks like this. And now let's check out the sit and rest. So this is sit animation. The rest animation even opens its mouth, which I'm pretty sure this is like a real thing crocodiles do, where they just like open their mouths and then like birds would come and pick out like the stuff stuck between their teeth, which is pretty cool detail. But yeah, overall design, I'm gonna have to go with like an 8 out of 10. This guy's pretty solid. Playability maybe a little lower because of how big it is and how slow it is, but it does do a lot of damage. All right, next comment says, I really love the old Buffalope animation song called. I don't know if there was music during Buffalope's animations. Is that what this guy's talking about? But I do agree with the Buffalope old model being a lot better than its current model. The current model looks something like this, which I think is a huge downgrade from what it used to look like. Before it actually looks pretty cool, you know, walking around flexing all the time. Now it just looks like a ball. Okay, well, this guy's trying to attack me already for some reason. Does do a lot of damage, but we're probably gonna die here.
12 seconds later.
Definitely old Buffalope design. I'd give the old one maybe like a 6 out of 10. It did look pretty similar to like standard Elope. Next one has a lot of creatures. We have the Lamaco, Dragonix, High Solidium, Diacrine, and the Sleigh. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Okay, so that is a lot of creatures. I don't know if I'm going to check them all out, but this is what the Lamaco Saurodon looks like, and it's really just like a sauropod with a tree on its back, which I think changes according to the seasons, which is a pretty nice feature. But yeah, the head on the Lamaco looks a lot like a parrot's head with the beak and everything. This is probably one of the more iconic creatures in Creatures of Sonaria. I'm giving this like a 7 out of 10. It's pretty solid. It's just like the color scheme, I'm not too sure about the patterns, like the yellows and the blues. All right, next up, let's check out the High Solidium, and this is a very dinosaur-like creature right off the bat. Not too much going on for it. It has these like feathers, I guess. The rest of the body just looks like a normal dinosaur. I do like the little antennas they put on the head and on the tail. I do like the design of it. It's just not very unique. Like if this creature was in another game, you wouldn't look twice. Not too much to talk about for this guy. I'd say like a 5 out of 10 for the High Solidium. All right, so next up we have the Doragonix or Doragonix, which is what I assume you meant by the comment. Maybe you meant the Dragonixoria, which looks completely different. Right off the bat, you can immediately tell that it's based off of a dragon fruit, which is basically what this whole tail area is. And the underbelly here is the same color as a dragon fruit is on the inside. And the other thing I see is that the Doragonix looks sort of like a Dilophosaurus, especially if you take a look at the crest here, as the double crest, which the Dilophosaurus does have in real life. And yeah, overall pretty solid. Nothing too crazy here. I'd probably rate this like a 6 to 7, maybe like a 6.5 out of 10. All right, so here we have the Diacrine, which is yet another sort of dinosaur creature design, except for the head. I think the head looks more alien than anything else, but it reminds me a lot of like the Dilophosaurus because of these two, I guess what you would call these crests on its head. Got like a bunch of fins, I'd guess is what you call them, on the back and on the tail, which looks like a leaf. It is a smaller creature, and I actually think this guy's design holds up decently well. The fins make it more unique than like the average dinosaur creature. And the head, I don't know if the head really fits the body though. I think it's decent. I think it's a decent design. Maybe like a 6 or 7 out of 10. 6.5. I'll say 6.5 out of 10 for the Diocrine. And the final one was the Sleigh, which looks like this. Is this the only creature you picked that isn't dinosaur-like? Huh, this is an interesting design. The color choice on this guy is pretty odd, with the red and the black, I guess. It's more of a purplish color, actually. I don't know if I like the design of this guy. Like, the horns are fine, but then it has this like, floating sort of thing in front of its head with an antenna. Makes it look sort of alien. Very interesting tail design. Looks sort of like a weapon almost. So definitely one of the more unique creatures. I'm gonna say like 6 out of 10. Because like it's very unique, but at the same time, like I'm not sure about some of these design choices. Pretty cool creature overall. Next comment says, I like the design of Cald, but my main play is Paystagen, or however you spell it, because it makes for very good mountain and ecosystem skins. Okay, so you're taking skins into account, which are custom. First, let's take a look at Cald, which looks like this. The Caldon Terrace is what I'm assuming you're referring to. And yeah, I agree. Caldon Terrace does look pretty cool. It reminds me a lot of like the kaiju from Pacific Rim, especially if you take a look at like the arm structure it's got going on. It's got 4 arms, which is very similar to, I think like it's called the Trespasser kaiju in Pacific Rim. It has like the giant thing on its back, just like the Trespasser. Definitely one of the cooler looking creatures in Creatures of Sonaria. Color scheme is elite. Like it's got like the almost lava-like colors on the inside of its back, I guess is what you would call it. It's got like the orange and yellow showing from its arms, its head, and its mouth. The light blue sort of color here, I think it works pretty well on this creature design because of the contrast against the black and the contrast against like the warmer colors. Let's see some of the animations for this guy. I don't have this guy fully grown at all, so this is what it looks like as a baby. You do lack the 4th arms, the 3rd and 4th arms. You just have 2 arms as a baby. But yeah, let's see the aggro. Oh, I bet this would look so much cooler if it had all 4 arms. It's the roar going. The cower looks like this. Let's see the sit animation. That's the sit animation, really? This is the sit animation. Looks like it's like on its knees, sort of. Now the rest animation, it lies fully down on its stomach. Yeah, very slow run animation, which makes sense since this guy is basically like a kaiju. Here's the walk animation. I'd rate this like a 7 or 8, maybe like a 7.5 out of 10. I personally like this creature, but then it does sort of look like a Pacific Rim kaiju. And the other creature you mentioned was the Paystagen, which looks like this. And if I'm reading this correctly, it sounds like you prefer Paystagen as a main play creature, and you like it for the mountain and ecosystem skin. So it's kind of both play and design. So here's what Paystagen looks like as a design. Very unique creature. Yeah, it's got this elephant-like head with the ears and the tusks, as well as the trunk. And the rest of the body, I'm not sure what it looks like. It reminds me sort of like a walrus. Front foot is facing backwards. I've never seen that on a creature design before. Okay, so the baby, it looks kind of just like an elephant. It still has the backwards foot on its front limbs. So here is the aggro animation. Man, I imagine this would look so much cooler if I was fully grown. Here's the cower. Not much going on with the cower, just like lowers its head. Looks cool on the, okay, buddy, I'm just showing off a creature. Please don't do this. You don't want the smoke, bro. Please. Okay, am I gonna die? I might actually, okay, yeah, I think I might be losing here. Don't do, okay. For uniqueness, I'll give this guy like a 9 out of 10. But for how much I'm a fan of the design personally, like with the backwards foot, I might have to go down to like a 6 out of 10. Alright, so the next comment says La Harpies because I personally like its design. Wow, okay, so this is what La Harpies looks like. Did they remodel La Harpies recently? Because I really do like the design now. As the name suggests, there's harps in the La Harpies on its head crest, on its wings, and it's a Valentine creature, so the pink theme makes sense. It's got the heart-shaped crest on its head. I really like the color scheme too. The gold and pink work out nice with the white and the darker red here. Let's check out what it looks like when I spawn in. I am unfortunately not an adult. This is what the baby model looks like. It also has a beak. Very well designed. I also like the animations for this guy. If you look closely at the eyes, it's got blinking animations, and it's got like red eyes with like blue irises. Very well designed creature. Yeah, 8 out of 10, maybe even like 8.5 out of 10. I agree with you. La Harpies is pretty solid. So next comment says it's between Kendall and Gyrous. We've taken a look at Kendall. It's a decently well designed creature, and here we have the Gyrous, which I know got a remodel pretty recently. What would you even call this? It's like a back spike, I guess, that grows forward instead of backwards. The color scheme is pretty basic. It's got like green. I do like the orange, the glowing orange highlights though. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I think like these giant plates give Gyrous its personality. If we remove the plates for a second, Gyrous would just be like a standard dinosaur sort of creature. This is the walk animation and the run animation. Nothing too special going on here. Here is the aggro animation. Here is the cower animation. Okay, I like the cower animation too. It's got the tail folded back, the head pointed straight down. Here's the sits animation, just sits normally, and the rest animation looks like that. Overall, Gyrous is probably like an 8 out of 10, I'd say. Alright, next comment says Morax and Mijua. So this guy clearly likes Spinosaurid creatures, and here we have the Mijua, which looks like this. I think the Mijua is one of the more thought out designs, or like themed designs, because the color scheme and the design really reflects on what it's meant to be. I think this is like obviously a coral reef sort of aquatic creature, which you can tell by not just like the fins, by the color scheme, by the coral like antlers, I guess is what you would call these, on its head. It does look a lot like the Spinosaurus, especially if you look at the head more. Longer shaped head. And let's check out some of its animations. So this is the walk animation and the run animation. So interestingly, Mijua only goes on its hind legs in any animation, never uses its arms. Okay, now let's check out the attack. Okay, it's just a bite. Thought it was going to use its arms maybe for the attack. Let's check out the swim. I do really like the swim animation. It looks very natural. If I speed up, it starts kicking in the water, which looks really well made too. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the way they made these swimming animations for Mijua. And now let's check out the aggro. Okay, does like a roar. And the cower, which looks like this. Here's the sit pose and the rest pose. Overall, Mijua looks pretty solid. I'd say like a 7.5 out of 10. But I don't know if I'm a big fan of the theme. Like the antlers, the coral antlers. I don't know if I like that. But yeah, I can totally understand why you would like this. So objectively, I'm going to give it like a 7.5, maybe even an 8 out of 10. And the other creature you mentioned was the Morax, which looks like this. I think the Morax is probably the cooler looking Spinosaur creature. It's definitely bigger than Mijua, and it has more of a spine than Mijua, which is these fins on its back. The red eyes on the black look pretty cool. It's got like the outlines of the bones on its arms and its legs. Walk animation, it does do like the knuckle walking thing, which I guess isn't accurate anymore for Spinosaurus. And the run, it goes on its hind legs only. The run animation is really slow though, which I guess to be fair, this is a very slow creature. Here is the sit. Okay, I do like the sit animation where the arms are on the front and the rest just lies down like that. Let's check out the aggro. Aggro animation looks pretty solid. It's like a nice roar. Even goes on its hind legs. Here is the cower. It presses like its head against the ground, which is a pretty interesting pose for a cower. And its mouth is open. Let's see the swim animation. I liked how fluid the Mijua swim animation was. It's definitely a lot slower than Mijua. Here's like normal swim. And the sprint swim looks like this. I think I prefer Mijusuima's swim animation more. Mijua feels a lot more aquatic than the Morax. Overall, I think I'd give Morax like an 8 out of 10. I do prefer the design slightly more than Mijua. I don't know, I think Morax just looks a lot cooler than Mijua. But like, I could totally understand if someone prefers Mijua over Morax. Alright, next comment says the Shimarax or the Krypto. Let's take a look at the Krypto here. Here is what it looks like when it's fully grown. This guy is a Halloween creature. I'm actually not a big fan of the Krypto. This guy's model looks a little dated, I have to say. I don't think this is like a redesign or anything like that. I do like the fire on its back and on its tail. That looks fine. And the color scheme looks a lot like Halloween, which I think is the point of the creature. It's got like the candy corn, orange and yellow. It's got like the purple. I do like the color scheme, just not a big fan of the way the creature is designed. The head looks sort of cool, but it doesn't have any eyes. I think the eyes are on its neck. The front limbs are kind of cool because if you look at the arms here, it looks like its wrists are bent backwards. Let's see what it looks like as a baby. Oh yeah, as a baby it is very plain. Yeah, it walks on its knuckles. It looks like it's walking on its wrist though. Holy, is that a Norox? That is a very cool custom color scheme on that Norox. For this video, I'm rating all the creatures on its default color scheme, not any custom color schemes that people can pull off. Because some of these people can make pretty good color schemes that like completely change a creature. But yeah, not a big fan of the Krypto. Check out the aggro animation, which just kind of roars. Cower just bends down. Rest sits like that. That's the sleep. Definitely one of the more dated models in the game. The attack, it just kind of bites. Okay, let's hear the sound effects. Okay, no, please don't do this. Can this guy at least swim? I don't remember if this guy can. No, he cannot swim. We're just dead then. Wow. This guy could swim. Or maybe it can. Wait. Maybe I can swim. Maybe I can swim. Which is weird because it does have like fire on its tail. Is he seriously following me? Why? I would rather drown than... Okay, we actually... But yeah, Krypto, I'm going to say like a 3 to 4 out of 10, 3.5 out of 10. Not the biggest fan. The other creature this guy picked was the Shimarax, which I think is like a completely different story. This guy looks very different. Wow, the color scheme works really well here. The pink and black contrast is really good. And yeah, this thing just looks alien. Like, this doesn't look like anything that exists, except for maybe like a mosquito. Sort of looks like a mosquito's head, but other than that, yeah. I think the color scheme really aids this creature in its design, because they could have painted this like a bunch of different colors. It's got these, I don't know if we're calling these like arms even, I guess like limbs that split in two. Yeah, I gotta check this guy out. What does it look like as a baby? Let's see. This is what it looks like as a baby. Interesting. So it looks sort of like a spider, and this is where the back legs are. Okay. So the back legs don't touch the ground, only the arms do. And here's the run animation. That is a very interesting run animation. It's almost like their tentacles. Wait, okay, let's see if we can glide now. We can glide, and this is what it looks like gliding. It just like cuts through the air like this. It doesn't even have wings. I don't know what you would call these things. They're not like tentacles. They're not arms. Let's see the attack animation. The attack animation is just a bite. I think they did a really good job with the head design too. If you look at all the eyes. Okay, so here is the aggro animation. Waves all the tentacles around. And the back legs are like facing backwards. Yeah, they are. Look at the toes. They're pointed backwards. Here is the cower animation. It kind of just does this. See the sit animation. I'm curious. Okay, sit animation, it kind of just stands on one of its legs, and then these fold inwards. Here's the sleep animation. Wow. Okay, sleep animation, it has all the tentacles coiled around it like that. This is probably like the closest to a 10 out of 10, maybe like a 9.5, 9 to 9.5 out of 10. Alright, so I know I said I was going to try and get through every comment, but it turns out I severely underestimated how long it would take to edit this video. I feel like this video is already getting a little too long, so I'm probably going to just save the rest of them for a part 2. And anyone that wants to add their own favorite creatures can click the pinned comment, which has a link to the post, and maybe I'll pick a few more comments for part 2. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.